going on today, guys? So recently I've been looking at my videos and I've been looking at the amount of views my videos have gotten, and some of the most popular were my two ranking videos. One of them was for the Star Wars films and the other one was for ranking the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And since we're caught up in the whole superhero thing again with X-Men Apocalypse, I thought now we'll go to DC and I'll rank all the Batman films. And before you guys may start to ask, yes, this list will include Batman v Superman because Batman is a major part of that film. And this is going to be, as always, from worst to best, because if I go from best to worst, this video will get extraordinarily depressing. So without further ado, let us start. Coming in number 8 is Batman and Robin. As you guys may or may not know, my favorite movie of all time is Terminator 2 Judgment Day. I love that movie so much, it's perfect for me. My least favorite movie of all time is Batman and Robin. And this is a movie that I never ever want to do a review for. Sorry guys, this is one of those reviews I just cannot do. This movie is the atrocity of atrocities. It is just the worst piece of crap film ever distributed. And it was literally a marketing campaign to sell toys. Arnold Schwarzenegger is Mr. Freeze? Are you freaking kidding me? Who sat down and said, you know what? For Mr. Freeze, we're going to get Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's on his comedy stint, and we'll get him in another comedy film, this time portraying a villain. The last time he was a villain was in The Terminator, which is one of the best films ever made. Mr. Freeze in this movie, it's just, I don't understand who thought that was a good idea. Who sat down and said, you know what, we're going to get Schwarzenegger to play Mr. Freeze. That sounds like a good idea, right guys? George Clooney as Batman was just so bad. I can't express it into words. I know people have said almost everything they could have possibly said about this movie, but him as Batman just was the worst.
Hi, Freeze. I'm Batman.
Next up at number 7 is Batman Forever, which is the precursor to Batman and Robin. Now, I actually remember enjoying this movie quite a lot as a kid. I enjoyed the fun, lightheartedness, but as you grow older, you realize it's really a silly, cornball cheese fest of just stupidity, because this movie is really bad. It's not good. I used to think it was good as a kid, but when you grow up, you start to see the world a little bit differently, and you start to see films differently. And this is a movie where my opinion has drastically changed. This movie is just a flat-out mess. It is boring, inconsistent. Characters say the stupidest and do the stupidest things ever. Jim Carrey's in this movie. Why? Playing the Riddler just to make jokes because Jim Carrey was pretty big in '95. Then Tommy Lee Jones playing Two-Face is honestly one of the most cringeworthy performances I've ever seen, because Tommy Lee Jones is an amazing actor from what we see in No Country for Old Men and of course The Fugitive. But in this movie, he is just awful. Val Kilmer, I think, was fine as Bruce Wayne. I think he was fine. He was nothing great. He wasn't terrible. He was better than George Clooney will ever be as Batman, but he just didn't have a lot of flair to him. He was just kind of a little bit bored, and you can feel it within his performance that he obviously wasn't really having fun with it. Nicole Kidman's in this movie just to show how hot Nicole Kidman was in the 90s, and she flirts with Batman, and it's awkward. As a kid, it was like, whoa, let's just see Nicole Kidman when I was like 10. Coming in at number 6 is Batman Returns. Rewatching Batman Returns, I realized it is nowhere near as good as the first movie, and it just was a little bit too weird for its own good. I can enjoy certain instances where the style is used because it looks kind of cool, but in other instances, it just looks very, very awkward and very dated. I think instead of going into a fun version, it went into a way too dark version. This movie is extremely depressing and very dark. I don't want any kids to see this movie because they'll obviously be terrified, and it's like they couldn't find the demographic to put this movie in, because 7-year-old kids should not be watching this movie. Adults will find it okay, I guess. Teenagers are probably the biggest target audience, I think, in this instance, but besides Michelle Pfeiffer sitting on that bed, there's not really like an awesome teenage-worthy moment. It just was okay. Coming in at number 5 is Batman v Superman. Now, before people start clicking the dislike button immediately and saying in the comments, you are a total idiot, how could you possibly rank that higher than Batman Returns? In all honesty, guys, they're basically like tied. They're both like B- to C+ movies in my mind. Even though I kind of like Returns a little bit more, over the months it's kind of just gotten lower for me. Same with Batman v Superman. However, guys, you have to realize that Batman was really the best part of that movie. Whenever he was on screen, it was just awesome. Ben Affleck really surprised me. He surprised, I think, pretty much the whole world because so many people were like, oh my god, this is so bad. Me included, I'm thinking, Ben Affleck is Batman? That sounds like one of the dumbest decisions I have ever heard in my entire life. However, his performance and what he did in the movie was just spectacular. He surprised all of us. And guys, in all honesty, that warehouse scene is honestly one of the best fight scenes I have seen in a movie so far this year. It just was perfect. If you guys out there have ever played a Batman Arkham game, that scene was made for you. This scene was made for the fans of the Arkham games because it felt like a true Batman Arkham scenario. You got a ton of guys in this warehouse in a secured location, and Batman's able to disable their weapons and then just launches them across the room. That was a perfect recreation of the Batman Arkham games, and it was just beautiful. Coming in at number 4 is The Dark Knight Rises. Now, it may surprise a lot of you that this is actually number 4, because it was my number 3 until I rewatched the movie recently. And don't worry, guys, I will be reviewing The Dark Knight Rises very soon. I've just been very busy with stuff, but don't worry. Going into next week, I'll try and see if I can schedule that in. But rewatching the movie, though, it has a ton of issues that I never really noticed before. Because when you try and analyze the movie, you realize that a lot of the things in the film really don't make a lot of sense. A lot of things do, but so many bits and pieces of it don't make sense and they become major plot holes. The biggest one being, how the hell did Bruce Wayne get back to Gotham in like 2 days after the entire city was just surrounded? It's like, how did he get back? It didn't make any sense to me. Someone can explain it to me in the comments section, but rewatching the movie, there are things that I loved about it. Absolutely. There are moments where I'm like, this is just fantastic filmmaking at its core. Because Christopher Nolan does know how to direct. He is an amazing director, and it just surprises me why he hasn't even gotten a single Oscar nod yet. And he's also a very good writer, but in this movie, his writing kind of showed a little bit of problems because it was very uneven at times, it was messy, certain things happen and you're like, romance happened and you're like, But overall, guys, I did still enjoy this movie. It's still a very good movie, and I'll definitely rank it high up. Coming in at number 3 is Tim Burton's Batman. Now, it might surprise a lot of people that this movie is actually higher than Dark Knight Rises, but rewatching this movie, guys, I still love it. I still think this is an awesome movie that's kind of underrated these days because no one ever really talks about it. It's a very overlooked movie in my mind. I think that for the most part, this movie does hold up pretty well. Now, yes, there is some obviously dated CGI and special effects. However, though, the ingenuity that was put into making this movie was really good. This movie perfectly recreates film noir sequences. There are really moments in this movie where I feel like I'm watching a noir. It just transcended onto the screen in such a great way, and it proved that you could take a very campy version of Batman, which was the Adam West character, and make him very serious, but not too serious to the point where you're like, oh god. I thought Michael Keaton did a fantastic job as Batman. I know that there was a lot of controversy surrounding that, and I'm like, why? Because Michael Keaton's short. Height should not be the reason to just say, oh, we can't be this character. Because I really feel like Michael Keaton did a very good job as Bruce Wayne and Batman. He was interesting in both characters. He had a lot of depth through him as well. And at the same time, Kim Basinger in this movie is actually my very first crush. Watch my review of 1989's Batman to figure out why. Jack Nicholson is an actor who just has always been known for delivering the unexpected. He's made performances that range anywhere from Mars Attacks to The Shining. I mean, just fantastic performances all around. And in this movie, the ability to just play a clown and to portray him as seriously as possible is just frightening to me. And Jack Nicholson pulled off the frightening bits and the comedic bits perfectly. Coming in at number 2 is the one that started the Nolan trilogy, and that is, of course, Batman Begins. Rewatching this movie, I loved it. I think that this is an excellent movie, and I think is tied with Spider-Man for the best origin story ever put on the screen. In fact, I think at times this movie actually is the best origin story ever put to film because it just does what no other origin story did, and it made you care about this character so much. The character of Bruce Wayne, his situations, what he had to go through.
What the hell are you? I'm Batman.
This is one of those blockbuster epics that wasn't concerned with setting up all these lavish landscapes and just big action sequences. This is one of those few movies that was made to tell a compelling story, and it did so perfectly. Christopher Nolan, as I stated before, is a fantastic writer and director. I think he's my favorite modern day director. He has not made a bad movie in my opinion, and Batman Begins was that movie that took him out of the little unknown indie type place and just placed him into a situation where he could direct a blockbuster and absolutely make it work, because it wasn't all about the action. It was about the characters and the story and the motivations and drives for certain characters to be who they are. And I just feel like it's just so powerful. It's so powerfully thematically stated into the movie that it just makes such a great emotional impact on the audience. And coming in at number 1, you guessed it, The Dark Knight, which is, in my opinion, one of the best films of all time. Definitely remains in my top 20 for sure. I love this movie. I cannot get enough of it. It is just one of the best cinematic experiences I've ever seen. It's one of the few movies where if it was at a re-release in a theater, I would absolutely go and see it. This is the kind of movie that I really would have wanted to see in the theater. As I stated in my review of this movie, there's a saying that your film is only as good as your villain. And it is absolutely true, because Heath Ledger's The Joker is just perfect. He was just so perfectly cast in it. This honestly was the role of a lifetime for him. And it is unfortunate that he is no longer with us. It's very sad, because his career could have just skyrocketed. And I think it was going to because of this. But unfortunately, he died, and it's just very upsetting. But his performance in this movie is one of the most menacing performances I have ever seen. I mean, the best sequences in this movie involve him, because it's not only his range of acting, but it's his viewpoints. It's what he says that's really impactful. It's the way he thinks about chaos. It's the way he psychologically thinks about the turning of people. It's his way of taking a man like Harvey Dent and, bringing him down to our level type deal. Honestly, The Dark Knight has everything. It has fantastic acting, performances all around. Christian Bale, Aaron Eckhart, Maggie Gyllenhaal, and of course Heath Ledger, just bringing it their alls in this movie. The action is filmed so incredibly well. You get a feel for nightlife as well when you watch those sequences. Specifically the one where Harvey is trying to get away in that truck. It's just so great. The music, the score in this movie by Hans Zimmer is just gold. It is just amazing. I love listening to it sometimes because it is very uplifting. The filmmakers were able to put just enough into The Dark Knight to make it just so cohesive and so brilliant. So there you have it, guys. That is my ranking of all the Batman films. So what would your rankings for the Batman films be? I'd love to hear your comments, so send them in the comment section below. If you agree, disagree, I'd like to hear why you agree and why you disagree with some of my placements, what you would have changed. Guys, thank you so much for watching as always. I really appreciate all the support from you, all your love. Thank you so much, and stay tuned.